we're doing a Revelation Bible study at First Baptist. And among the discussions we're having is the meaning of light. And there's light everywhere in my photographs. It's pivotal to be able to capture what I want to capture. And in our study, we were referencing this passage came up. It's in Matthew 5:14 through 16. And it just really kind of encapsulates a lot of what I experience doing my photography. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And really, my photography is my light, and obviously God is in every single frame that you see here. So that really is very meaningful to me. And a lot of times, I also have to add, when I capture something that I'm like so excited about, I am so grateful, and I am thanking God for it. Several people have asked me about the baby green herons, and this is one of them, and this is one of them, and I have so many more that I just couldn't put in here. How did you capture those? And I spent 3 glorious weeks on Kingston Ridge Lake, underneath an overhanging tree. That's where they like, underneath it, they like to make their nests. And 5 hours a day, 3 hours in the morning until it just got too hot and I had to rest, and then another hour, and then I go back and rest in another hour on my pedal boat. So all the photographs from Kingston Ridge are from on the water in my pedal boat. But I got to tell you, what a wonderful experience. I'm trying not to interact with them. I'm just observing. I'm hoping I'm like wallpaper to them eventually. And I really don't want to scare them. But I mean, when you experience something like that, you got to thank God for that. I mean, it is amazing, and probably a once in a lifetime. I mean, I'll probably have other experiences, but that one was so unique. So in an extension of that, I just want to encapsulate the feeling I get, and maybe it shows in I don't know, but the feeling I get when I'm out there and I'm anticipating and I'm watching, observing, I'm taking these photographs, and I was like, how do I encapsulate the feeling that I get? And it's really this supreme contentment and this immense gratitude that I can do this. So I don't take any of it for granted. Okay, so I want to start with like, how did this come together? Because it's not the standard way of putting together an exhibit. It's funny because I told Jill way back when we started talking about this, I said, I want to do it in a wave. I want it to undulate on the wall. And then I tried to put little pieces together on a mock-up, and I was like, I don't like this. I'm not doing that. So, yeah, exactly. And so then I said, what I'm going to do is the large ones, and I'm going to group about 8. It just worked out the number-wise, 8 around each of those. So when I came last week and started putting it up, I was like, I started putting this one up first, and then this, and I'm like, hold on a second, and this just kind of came out, and we were talking about, and Jill's, I just had to look at it for a little bit every once in a while, and I put up some more, and so it's kind of like, it was almost like meant to be, and I have to say this was, okay, so the one, Jill, I don't even know if you remember this, but when I was putting it up, and you'd be there and watching everything, and it was one of the best compliments I ever got. She said, excuse me, I had to keep my notes. So she says, first you said, I don't know why we don't do this more. And then you said, you're coloring outside the lines. We color inside the lines, and you're coloring outside the lines. And I'm going to kind of carry that with me because, I'm going to remember that. So thank you for that. That was a very nice thing to say. So when you're looking at it, I like seeing things all as a whole. Before you look at the individual photographs, I like looking at it diagonally. Hello, I'm just moving around. And you can see it undulates to that corner and that. So it is like the wings, and I would think more like a great blue heron wings, or a wave, because a lot of my photographs have to do with water. But I just like suggest kind of take that in, because that's kind of how it came together for me. So let me see, what else do I want to tell you? As well, because it's not all on your line of sight. When you're looking straight ahead, some's low, some's back. So everything is about movement. Let me turn around. Everything is about movement. And so sometimes you may have to take a step back to be able to see the images that are lower, and you're going to have to look up and really maybe get closer to see the details of this, where the two little turtles are, as this snowy egret is flying onto this little grassy area in the middle of a lake. That's from Florida, DeSoto Lake. So even you somewhat have to move. You're part of the movement. That's kind of the whole theme of my photography is movement. Even when it doesn't look like there's movement, there is movement in it. Let's see what else. So I want to speak about the characteristics of wildlife movement, and I'm self-taught. I had to learn, I had an idea of what I wanted to photograph, what I was very interested in, but I could spend the rest of every day of my life going out on the water and photographing wildlife of all kinds, and I would be so happy with that. I mean, it would be just plenty for me to deal with. So I learned, I said, what do I need? What kind of camera do I need? What kind of lens do I need? How do I use that? And I was like, and I studied other wildlife photographers and what they said, but I was like, you know what? I'm not sure that's it. So I kind of looked at sports photography as well, which is pretty much exactly the same thing as wildlife photography. You have to know, in sports photography, you have to know what you did, the field of play, the rules, the different players, and you have to anticipate where and at what point the action is going to take place. That's exactly what I have to do. So it's just really this interesting idea that this is kind of sports photography. Also want to add the iconic photo of Trump with the fight with his, that is also a movement photography. It's not posed. Like if it was just the event, him giving a speech, that's more posed, that's more static. But that is why that is such a, I mean, it's the subject matter, but the instance, the movement, what it conveys, the movement, that photographer had to be there ready at the right angle with the light to get that, and how we look at it and what we feel when we see it. I mean, that's amazing. So it's very similar to what takes place in my photography. Okay, so in the anticipation part, you have to know the players and what's going on. And sometimes it can be happy accidents, and you learn things about the different, and mainly these are birds because they move a lot, and I like that. But sometimes you find similar movements and different behaviors. So this one, and you gotta have a sense of humor, this one's called Everybody Poops. So the funny thing is that the same behavior that is right before a bird poops, birds of prey predominantly, they hunker down, but that's the same movement they make before they take flight. So I'm starting to already take the photo when this happens. And it makes me laugh. And I have several, and also I love this because I hope you all have a good sense of humor, but the poop, come on, it's perfectly symmetrical down, and it splits. That's why I had to include it, because it's awesome and it makes me laugh and I love it. So, these anticipation, you learn about these things. And I also have to decide where my focus is going to be, and where things I think are going to happen. And this, of course, over time has increased. This ability has increased, and I can kind of guess really more accurately where I think something's going to happen and turn my focus to that. Okay, and obviously we've talked about light. It's very important to focus. So I know photographer here, you're very interested in, I position myself mainly, I like photographing things in the morning, very early. I like, because it's strengthening light. So if in the afternoon I'm fighting against time and it's going to get dark and the light is going to weaken. This is a strengthening light. I love, mainly most of these are in the morning, some are not. And let me see where I was going to go with that. And and it's over my shoulder onto it so it doesn't create these harsh shadows. You can see the detail everywhere. You can see all the detail when the light is on all the subjects. But every once in a while, I will give it a try, and if I can find the one, oh, there it is. So this was taken at high noon, and it should have terrible, distressing, dark shadows that are gross. But this one, this is a snowy egret, and he was walking all along the shoreline on a very hot day. That's in Florida. And because he was taking a bath, he was bending into the light. And so there's always exceptions, I'm saying, in photography. You can follow the rules, but go with it if you find something because of the movement. I didn't have harsh shadows, and I love that photograph. So let me see what else I have to say about this. Okay, and this is another thing for photographers. I don't have any fancy editing program. I have a great camera and great lens, but I just use what came with my 8-year-old computer. I've kind of hacked it to figure out what I want to do. I'm like, I know I have something that will help me do it, and I do it. So I don't have any kind of fancy editing subscription at all to do what I do. I'm just saying you can kind of teach yourself and figure out, don't necessarily, it's not you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's not. It's whatever works to create or capture what you're looking for. So that was just an aside. So of these 100 plus images, in deciding them, I look analytically. I have to print them when I think they're good enough. When I've edited them, I have to look at them analytically. I have to print them. I have to hold them, kind of talking about my process, about if they're good enough. Are they there? What do I think when I see them? And I put them up in my house. I've never done this. Don't have quite the space to do this, but I walk by them. And so kind of like when you're doing this, just walk by. What catches your eye? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? And there's a wide variety. They're all birds, but there's a wide variety of what's going on in each image and why I like them. And I know for a fact there'll be different reasons why you might like something or not. It's so individual when we look at something like this, what we like and what we don't like. All right, so in that vein, a lot of my photography, there's like, I would say different categories that everything falls into. There's a lot, I like making these animals, these birds, taking a photo that kind of imbues them with some human qualities. So there was a woman who was in here while I was putting it up, and she's looking around, she's looking over here, and she looked and she pointed to the snowy egret down here, and she said, oh, it looks like it's dancing. And I thought, that's right. And guess what it's called? The tango. So it had the intended effect. Like it looks like, this very beautiful, graceful bird is dancing. And I like that. There's some other ones that have that same kind of feel for me. Oh, and this is from my neighbor, Pam. And it solidified my wanting to include this photograph, if I can find out where it is. It is called, there it is, Take It Back. So these are two juvenile baby green herons, and they look like they're fighting. And when she looked at it, she said, well, those two people are arguing. I said, I'm keeping that one in, because that's what I like when there's a different meaning to, or feeling when you see it, perception. I guess that is probably the right thing. So that's one big point of my photography, something I really enjoy. Okay. And this is another one. I have to point this one out because I really love this one. This is the two ibis, and I was taking photographs of this ibis. There was about a swarm of 30 of them walking along the shoreline. This is in Florida. And this one just turns to this one. And immediately I thought, and it's called How You Doing? So it's exactly, right? I'm like, I don't know. To me, this is a male, obviously, and this is a female. And I know it's because he's a little taller, and she's like ignoring him. And I'm like, it looks like a guy's like, hey there, lady. I just love that. Like, and of course, that's not what was happening, but that is the impression I get when I look at it. One more like that. I'm out of here. This is a baby green heron, and that looks like a little kid to me, like, I'm gone. I don't need to be here anymore. And I just love that. There's something about it. And it's not crystal clear either, because he's walking through these leaves and foliage. So it doesn't have to be completely sharp and precise, the image, if it still is evocative. But make no mistake, I love sharp and clear photos like that one. That is almost sculptural to me. That is, this bird was flying into the morning light, and because this is fully lit and this is in the shadows. I just love that. It almost has a three-dimensional look. I have the very simple, obviously, see, I love that one. Flying into the morning light, you get the wings, the details of the feathers. There's something striking and beautiful to me in that clarity of a photograph. I also have, there's ones that are softer, like the Overlook, and that is a little blue heron that was flying, it was just landing, but these muted, subtle, almost pastel colors. I just think that's a beautiful, and the offset, it's not strictly in the center. It's just, something about that strikes me that I really appreciate, the softness. There's another one like that I really like. Oh, this one, right here, unfurled, the wings unfurled. Because it was a slightly cloudy day, it was intermittently cloudy. I just love the softness of that and that expansiveness of the wings on that one. And I have to mention, so this is the only one where there's two almost identical frames, but I had to have them together. It's called Try, Try Again. So this was a juvenile great blue heron in Kingston Ridge. This is on Bonnie. This is overhanging tree right off of your yard. And so he is trying to catch a fish here. He gets a leaf, and then in the next one, he catches a fish. But the thing about this is it was very dark. It was a lot of shade, and to get that clarity, and this golden glow, because it is blistering sun outside of the shaded area. So I was like, yay, hang out in the shade for a while. I'm really hot. And it's just beautiful, this light and this clarity in such a shaded environment. I just love that. And I have to put it together because one of the things you learn is as these animals grow when they're young, they're very flexible in their thinking in a way because they're practicing being who they are. They're trying things. You see those interactions that are kind of not focused on survival yet. They're much more flexible in their behaviors. And you see as they age, they kind of form and they stiffen up and they're like, my focus is on surviving and producing more of me. I mean, it's a really interesting difference. So you get with the youth, the young ones, and that's another young green heron, they look more playful because they're trying out things. They are reacting mainly to the arrival of their parents and food, and that gets a lot of behaviors too, but you just don't see it in the adults. It's a very different thing. So it's interesting to learn that as I spend these hours and hours doing this. And I have to mention this one from Joy. So again, taking photos that the actual subject doesn't always look that way. And I don't know if you remember this because I have a group that I share photos with. And this was taken on your yard, Joy, on Kingston Ridge. And this was one of our white ducks, female duck, who's no longer with us. But she said, you made one of the ugliest ducks I've ever seen look beautiful. Do you remember that? And I said to her, I said, and what it's called? I said, yeah, when I took it, I thought she was having a good hair day. So it was a very cold, spring, windy day, and this is not standing still. This was in mid-preening and cleaning her feathers, and I just got this stance with the ruffled and the shadows, and it's pretty, right? And from an ugly duckling, it's neat to be able to do that, to change things. So let's see, I have so much more I could say. So I don't know how much more you want. Oh, I do want to mention this. Sometimes, okay, there's a whole slew of predatory images, and some people have a problem, or they feel, ooh, I don't want to see that. Whether, catching a bug or a fish. You see a lot of fish. This one is one of the most intense ones because that's a great blue heron flying off with a Muscovy duckling. I watched that transpire over about 30 minutes, and I knew it was going to happen, and it did. And I like showing, and I would show more, there's a lot of that. I want nature in its reality, that death comes from life, and you have to have that. And I don't feel bad that the predators take the prey because they have to live too. This is one of my favorites. So this is an ibis, and it's doing what it's doing to get this fish. They don't chew, but they shake, and they basically pulverize so that they can swallow it. They crush all the cartilage and bone. And someone might say, ooh, that's so kind of savage or whatever, because, the fish is kind of falling apart. But it's striking just from the posture of the ibis and what's focused on. And I think I like to show that. And again, people talk to me when I'm taking photographs all the time. And one time I had this guy, and he was, tough guy. He was on a motorcycle, and he comes up and he says, I wish I was one of these. You don't have to worry about people, and you can just it's like idyllic. And I'm like, everything here is trying to kill everything else here. Let's be realistic, and that's okay. And we need to kind of embrace that. I'm a meat eater, so I have to embrace that there is life from death. And I like to show that realistically. I'm not Pollyanna about what's out there. There's another gentleman who was talking to me how he saw an owl come down and just destroy. I don't have any photos of them up here, black belly whistling ducks. And he's like, I just hate seeing that. And I wanted to maybe shoo the owl off. And then he fully came around to understanding what he's saying, because he's an avid fisherman. And I was like, well, he's like, well, I guess they need to eat too, and I fish. So he had some self-awareness and came around to it. But it's like this push-pull we have in ourselves, I think. I mean, this fish is long gone, but that's really kind of beautiful with the turquoise eye of the cormorant and the way the curve of the fish right into the mouth. I mean, that's a successful fishing mission for the cormorant there, and good for him. So let's see what else we have here. Did the old versus young birds. I have to mention this one individually. I love the Muscovy ducks, and I haven't really talked about them. This one in particular, they're these huge ducks. They're considered invasive. They have these caruncles all over their face. The older the males have them, the females are much more delicate. But this guy, I always know who he is because he has some malformation of his mouth. And he just, I don't know if it's an injury or if he was born that way. And he just goes on and lives his life, happy as can be, functioning fine, has enough weight. He's not, missing any meals. But I love these ducks because that's one as well. I have several. That's one right there. Female, they're more delicate. But they're just a hoot of ducks. They're large. They're like somewhere between almost not quite goose size, but they're large. They pant. So if you hear them coming up behind you, you're going to hear, you're like, is there a dog back there? And they're just the funniest things in the way they eye you and interact. So that's just a little aside, how much I really, that one in particular. And I mentioned this to Pam and Shane. So this is the one that's totally anomalous from every single other one I've done. And this is Shane's fishing boat, and this is on their land. And they have this morning light, especially in the spring and summer, that is just divine. And I call this one Peace and Quiet. And I was talking with them, I think it could also be anticipation. It could be, let's get out there and fish on the water. So for every rule, again, there's an exception. So you could say there's no movement, there's light, which sometimes seems to me to be movement. Let's see what else we have. Okay. And this is a plea. I'm almost wrapping up here. So this is a plea to everybody, and I mentioned this to somebody already. You see birds, and I love these birds. I photograph the birds because they move through space all different ways, and who knows what angle I'm going to get. But I'd love to photograph other things as well. So if you're from New Albany and you have land and you have any kind of other animals or birds as well, please talk to me if you would like me to come and maybe capture a unique image of your animal. If you have horses or cows, there's one cow I have, and I love this cow. It was a neighbor cow in Florida, and it was a misty day. That's why it's such a soft lighting, and it's just chewing a single little bitty piece of grass. So I would love if you know of somebody, or if you have land and you have animals, rooster. This is one of my favorites. This was a wild rooster that showed up on the lake I photographed on in Florida. He's a cool guy. If you have horses, donkeys, goats, sheep, or if you have land where you have other wild animals, if you have deer, feel free. I have my email address over on my little blurb. Please contact me because I would love to get a wider breadth of photography, and I would in turn provide you with a very interesting, unusual image of that wildlife, or if it's a pet or livestock, whatever. I just wanted to call that out, and please consider that, because I'm always interested in more experiences. And thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate being able to share this with all of you. And I hope maybe you come back, because I know there's a lot of photos here, and see if it impacts you the same way. And if you notice something different, because you may notice something different the next time you come here when it's empty or it's quiet and your focus is pulled somewhere. So maybe try that and see what strikes you as you walk in and you look at the different pieces. And I wanted to read this. So this is from my friend Sue, who gave me a book on Psalm 23. And this also personifies how I experienced doing all this. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. So I will end with that, and thank you.
Well, I think the same way. When I'm at a show or doing an exhibit, I always tell people I'm just a big kid who grew up still playing in puddles, because that's what I'm doing every day. When I first started this series, it was I thought it was just luck. You know, you do some things and you have this light bulb moment to where you go, oh, wow, this is really great. But then after a while, I realized that it had been growing subconsciously for several years. And I'll show you the one. So I grew up here, and my wife and I did a lot of traveling, and so over time I've developed a love for photography, and I was like, oh, I'd really love to be able to take this and make it a living one day. So I was doing web design and traveled a lot, took a lot of pictures, just landscape, travel, nothing special. And then one time we were in Boston, and I was over by the Old North Church, and there was a big puddle on the ground by the church, and so this is what I took a picture of, right? It's just a puddle on the ground. Well, when I came home and I was going through my pictures, I had the idea to turn it over so that if we see the object like we do in the real world. Well, it was one of those light bulb moments. I'm like, wow, this is really a great perspective. Because when you just see a puddle, people go, oh, it's just the water. They discount it. But when I turn them over, I get people go, is this a photo? Is this a painting? Is it a combination of both? So it creates this illusion of mystery. And I really like that because it starts conversations with folks. And over time, I've learned to make my own puddles. I bring a bottle of water with me. At first, I thought I was going to be cheating doing that. But then I started doing it, and I realized it's not always easy. You find out where the ground slopes really quick. And surface color makes a huge difference as well. You can see how some are really bright and some are sort of monotone. And that is because of the surface that I'm shooting off of. So the surface under the water makes a huge difference to me. Some of these over here, you see, almost looks like there's an alien invasion. But really, this is the rock mixture in the asphalt underneath the puddle. And I found that every part of the country has different mixtures. So it allows me to shoot sort of the same pictures or subjects, but create different compositions. All right. So I go all over and I shoot reflections everywhere I go. It's kind of my thing. I kind of look crazy when I do it, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. When I bring a bottle of water, this is what I'm doing. I'm walking around like this. I'm looking at the ground because I already know what I want to shoot pictures of. So I'm not looking up, I'm looking down. I'm looking at surface color. I'm looking at surface level. So I go out, I'll do this. I'll take some pictures. I'll stand up and I'll go like this. I'll walk over here and I'll go all around and do that. So anybody ever sees me around town, I'm not crazy. I'm just out working. Because I always feel that if you don't look crazy when you're working, making art, then you're not really a good artist. Not really true, but I like to think that. So over time, I just started using water. Every time I saw water, I would shoot a picture. Didn't matter where I was at, I shot a picture. And then I learned to start bringing water, and I feel unstoppable now. Like I almost gained a superpower. Because now I can shoot anything I want, most anything. There's a few that have been problems. Like I said, surface color makes a huge difference because the darker the subsurface, the more color and clarity you can see in a reflection. So you can see the courthouse here, many different trips here. This one was the last one, blue sky. This was the first one, and then this one was the time before. So really what I've done is I've created a collection of New Albany stuff that's been the same since I was here and things that have changed since I left here. Like the trail was not here, the park bridge was not here. The bank's still the same, so that hasn't changed much. I still have many things to shoot, but that's the beauty of coming to town is I'm always working forward. Where's this one? So as you can notice, everything's upside down, and that's on purpose. I like to create the illusion of a little bit of surrealism. Sort of a big fan. So this is one I didn't bring with me. Let me take it out so you don't have the reflection. So, like Rebecca says, you kind of appreciate everything around you when you're taking pictures. Nothing left, leave no stone unturned, so to say. Now, when I go out shooting, I've always got a list of where I'm going, but I leave myself time to discover stuff in the moment because you can't plan everything. I'm sure you do the same thing when you go out shooting birds. It's like, well, I can go over here and I can pick what time of day I go and what kind of light, but sometimes the birds aren't there. So sometimes you just have to work with what you got. So I'll show you this one. This one's really special. So you see this one? It looks like you're looking at a starry night almost, right? Well, this is really all I took a picture of. This is really just a curve in a parking lot. And what looks like stars is actually the street. So I found that upside down, it makes people really question what they're looking at. I've done an art show, and I've had people come from across the room like this, like this. And to me, I love that because they're discovering something. And when they come in and they got their mouth open, I know that I'm doing something right. So upside down always creates that illusion that kind of intrigues people. They may not come in and buy the art, but I've had so many great conversations about art because of them. You know, that's what is important to me. So I'm not a typical photographer. You know, I play in puddles. Sometimes I shoot with my iPhone because I'm a big believer that the best camera you have is the one that's with you. And who doesn't have a phone in their pocket right now that has a camera on it? So I still love my big cameras, but some days small cameras are the way to go. So I like to shoot the same subjects over and over to kind of challenge myself to create something new from the same subject matter. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always trying. And I travel all over. If anybody sees my work, I've got cities and subjects from all over the country. Not really out of the country, but it's definitely fun. So let's see, what else? If anybody ever knows who's in these pictures, please let me know, because I didn't realize that I actually had people in my shot here. Usually I don't try to shoot people because I just like to shoot objects and places. And sometimes you get a little bit of trickery. You see this one of the trail sign, and right here along the edge, there's just a leading edge of no reflection. Sort of gives you a little bit extra to look at. Sort of a, I don't know, just kind of a little special treat. You kind of plays tricks with your mind when you're looking at them, and I like that because some people look at them and they go, "Do I have to hang this upside down?" I'm like, "No, I choose to show it that way, but it's personal preference." As a matter of fact, I tell some people, you can have two pieces in one. You want to hang it this way today, and you want to hang it this way tomorrow. And I've had people say, "Put it on a swivel so I can do that." I actually had one person buy a piece and built a frame that did that and sent me a picture of it. I'm like, that's way too much engineering for me. But it's a beautiful collection. I really have a lot of fun with it. Like I said, I'm a big kid who plays in puddles every day. And so one day someone goes, "You and firemen?" I'm like, "Yes, but I'm not quite as serious as a fireman. I'm out taking pictures and having fun." And since I'm always down like this, people walk by, they think I'm taking a picture of the ground. So I've got a whole collection of people looking at me in the puddle. And I always call it the smelling onion face because they're always like, "What's this crazy person doing?" So one day I might have an art show of just that. It'd be fun. So let's move over here. So I've been coming in and out of New Albany since I can't remember how young I was. But my grandparents' house, which is nice to see it's finally being restored. But I was able to capture their beautiful house the last time I was here. A little different than last time, but it's still nice to pay homage to what brought me to New Albany and what my core memories are. You know, my grandparents were very special. A lot of fond memories growing up. And this was a picture from my mom's pier at her lake when she was still out at Tate Lake. I apologize, I don't have a good reflection of your house, but good picture. I even have the Oxford Courthouse, just to kind of tie it into the area. And Roanoke, since Faulkner was from here. And then sometimes I didn't really plan it this way, but if you see this one at the bridge in Memphis, It almost looks like the body of a guitar. Now, I didn't plan it that way. Someone pointed that out, but it was just a happy accident. You've had plenty of those, right? But see, how this one's taken. So I kind of play with your perspective. Sometimes you feel like you're looking up, but really, I'm always looking down. But it's always just a unique perspective. Now this one here, this one shows that you don't have to go very far. Like you've shown plenty of birds. They're like, oh, this is my neighbor's yard. Okay, this is a koi pond in my backyard. And with this one, I learned to skew the water myself. I put my finger in the water and I dropped it. And I wanted people to go, wait a minute. Am I looking at the sky and you skewed that? Or am I looking at the water and that's what's skewing it? Again, it creates this mystery and just kind of creates conversations with folks to say, hey, how did you do that? Sometimes people say, oh, you're manipulating your pictures. You're doing all this extra work. I'm like, I'm way too lazy for that. You guys are giving me more credit than I need. I'm like you. I'm not against editing, but I like to get it right in the camera. You know, saves me time. You go out and shoot 300 pictures or like me, 1,000 pictures or whatever. Editing takes a long time. And if you also have to color correct them, well, you're not really shooting them. You're not taking the time to get the light right. So it's important to hone your craft. I'm a big believer in teaching yourself whatever you want to learn. I guess being a middle child, maybe, my sister here, my younger sister. As a middle child, I always felt that if I wanted to do something, I just took it on myself. And maybe that's from my genetics, my mom, but I've just always been a self-learner. So with photography, I taught myself just like you, you know. But with the reflections, I kind of formed my own way. First with just shooting the water, but then learning to make a puddle and shoot anything I wanted to. I did a show in Nashville. It was called the Tomato Festival. So I had this genius idea, I'm gonna make a photo shoot. I bought a bunch of tomatoes, and I bought a bunch of funny little hats. And I made these picket signs that say, we're a fruit, not a vegetable, or we're a vegetable, not a fruit. And I did all these little photo shoots, and I didn't sing a single picture. I'm like, well, that's the last time I'm gonna do that. Try to be creative, but I still do my own shoots, don't get me wrong, but it just shows that, you know, experiment. It might not work out, but at least you try, you know, you're at least trying, you never know where it might lead you to. So with the reflections, people look at me like I'm crazy, but I don't care, you know, I'm doing what I love and I'm making it my own, which is all you can ever do. I want to thank Rebecca for being here and being part, and Jill and the museum, and my mom mostly for putting this all in motion when I was here last time. Well, actually, you told me about a couple of times. Let's see, anything else? Like I said, I do shows all over. I do one in Memphis. Double Decker's only one day, isn't it? Yeah, see, that's why I haven't done that one. It's on a good weekend. I also do a show in Huntsville. Anything else? I would say that if I have any advice for anybody who's doing anything creative or just in general, would be patience. Patience with yourself, patience with the process of learning, and it's okay to experiment. It's all okay to just go out there and make it your own. It might not work out, but you never know where it's going to take you in the process, you know. I didn't know that I was going to end up shooting reflections, but it just came to be. I had a day where I had a light bulb moment where I thought, hey, this is a really cool idea. And then I realized that for 2 or 3 years before that, I had been randomly shooting reflections. So it was subconsciously growing. And I feel very blessed to have realized that I have my own unique vision of this. And I want to thank everybody for coming out to our exhibit tonight and listening to us talk. And that's all I got. Thank you.